made to strip down and then was run over by a police vehicle and then was shot and killed. But then there's another report that says little brother ran over him while the cops were handcuffing him. But witnesses are now coming out saying that the cops did it. But the lying media is telling the Munchkins of Oz a different story. And then we heard about little brother hiding in the boat from Thursday night to Friday evening. The official story says that there was a shootout with him and his older brother. His older brother got killed. He ran over his older brother. That's Thursday night. And then he drove through the police barricade in his SUV and got away. Now, first of all, folks, Boston was in lockdown. There were helicopters everywhere. So we're led to believe that he busted through a roadblock and got away. And he was able to jump out of his car, wander through a neighborhood, and then he found a boat to hide in. So that was Thursday night. And the official story also says that he had been wounded. So Thursday night, he's dripping blood, and he wanders through the neighborhoods of Boston and finds a boat. He lifts the tarp and crawls under it, and he hides in there until the next day, Friday night. And the reason that he was discovered is because an observant citizen, i.e. the owner of the boat, noticed that his tarp that was on his boat was awry, so he went to fix it. And when he walked up to the boat, he saw the blood, so he left the property, went to the neighbors, called the cops. The cops came and they riddled the boat with bullets, and then little brother climbed out, and he was wounded in the neck because they say he shot himself in the mouth with his own gun. Now, that's the official story. However, there is an image that is all over the internet now that shows him climbing out of the boat, and he is not wounded at all. He's not shot. There's no blood on him. So when he got out of the boat, he was surrounded. The spotlight is on him in the image. It looks to be a spotlight either from a police car or possibly it's from a helicopter. They had him surrounded, and they took him peacefully without a fight. But then between the time he climbed out of the boat and the time that he made it to headquarters, he got shot in the throat. So they say that he put a gun to his mouth and shot himself. However, there are others that say the police shot him. And then one SWAT person let it leak out that he was actually sliced in the throat. So they were trying to kill him because they had to silence him. He wasn't supposed to talk. Now, side note, folks, the official story says he ran Thursday night. He got on the boat Thursday night, and then Friday he was discovered. Now, there is another story that the media is saying, and this is why I have to scratch my head and say, really? You guys need to get your notes together. Because whoever's writing the script is doing some sloppy script writing. Because there's another report that says that between Thursday and Friday, before little brother was caught, he took the time to tweet what was going on. Now, what's wrong with that statement? Well, if he's hiding in a boat, how did he tweet? Well, he could have done it with his phone, Nathan. Really? So if he used his phone, they could have located him. Well, maybe he went to an internet cafe and did it. You know, that's about as absurd as what we hear about Tim McVeigh was taken into custody because he was going down the highway driving a vehicle without a license plate. You know, if these alleged terrorists or suspects are smart enough to cook up such a destructive bomb, why can't they think ahead and remember that if you tweet somebody, you're going to get caught? So how did little brother tweet? They're not telling us that part. Folks, there are so many parts of this story that make no sense. They don't add up. And because they don't add up, I have to just conclude one thing, that we are being fed lie after lie. I have an audio soundbite of a witness who called into a radio station who says that they watched the police take Tamerlan into custody and the police run over him. Now, the official story is saying little brother ran over Tamerlan with his stolen SUV, but listen to this, folks.
Good morning, Linda. How are you? John, Jerry, and Kirk with you.
Oh, it's been a long night.
I'll bet it has. You live on Dexter Street, correct?
My boyfriend does, but I was just spending the night.
Okay, and tell us what happened. Give us the timeline, what you saw.
We rushed to the front of the house. It's a two-family house, and into his roommate's room, where we saw the first suspect get hit by a police SUV, and then after he was hit, shot multiple times. Minutes later, an ambulance had arrived, put the suspect into the ambulance, and then off.
And did you say that the suspect was hit by a police SUV? In other words, a vehicle hit him first?
I can also say, from what we saw early this morning, I'd be hard pressed to think that he was actually pronounced dead at the hospital. I mean, from the injuries that he incurred in the street, I would say he was probably dead when he was put in the ambulance.
Interesting. Now, listen to this other soundbite from the aunt of the two brothers, and she says that she believes this whole thing was a setup and that it was staged by the powers that be. And as she is talking, note that the news interviewers try to distract her with statements like, "You mean somebody else tried to set them up, but not the authorities?" And she says, "What are you talking about?" In other words, what she meant was, who stands to gain from this setup? Of course it's the powers that be. So listen to this.
Let's go back to the aunt now speaking in Canada.
Naturally, I guess, whatever I feel will come out. Natural. It's so natural. What is so different about it?
Have you talked to police at all, or have they...
I haven't talked. Nobody is contacting me. I called FBI first line. FBI line. If you have any hints, let us know. That's the number I called because, hey, knowing these two boys, strongly believing they wouldn't do this, that's why I called.
What did you
But I called not right away. First reaction was anger. How could this happen? How could this do this? For what? For the sake of what? What beliefs? What prompted them to this? This reaction. But then I went through material, whatever is in there. Quickly. My first call to FBI. They could not have done this. Where evidence? All you're showing, that's just the footage. Two guys are walking, and I found it strange. Tamerlan is walking in the front. Jahar is in the back. Why wouldn't they come together? Just, together as brothers, as I used to know them.
So then are you suspicious that maybe they really did do this?
No, I'm suspicious that this was staged. The picture was staged.
By who?
Whoever needs this.
But why would they
whoever
target
is looking for those who need to be blamed for these attacks.
So you think they're being set up by someone else, not the authorities? You think they're being set up by someone else?
What do you mean, somebody else?
Well, who was setting
Who
them
is
up?
interested in this case? When you're blowing up people and you want to bring attention to something for some purpose, you do that math. But why don't you do that math? Why me?
Police
As I said, I'm used to being set up. Before I left former Soviet Union countries, that's how I lived.
Well, there it is, folks. So, who do we believe? For some of you, you may find it difficult to hear what I'm saying and to consider what I'm saying because in your eyes and in your mind, nation America could never do something as hideous as inventing an entire plot with fiction. And if that's you, that's fine. You're entitled to that opinion. But ladies and gentlemen, please know this. This is not just one event. We have watched over and over massacres happen. Sandy Hook, Aurora, Colorado, as I stated earlier. We have watched these events happen, and the stories continue to have holes in them. The stories continue to not add up. Now, several months ago, we talked about this, and we talked about how demonic spirits are going to play their role in causing America to evolve into a police state. And in order for this to happen, demonic spirits have to actually be involved. Demonic spirits from another realm. And folks, remember this? During the inauguration, we talked about the invasion of Babylon. How we found in Jeremiah chapter 39:2. We can see that when Babylon invaded Jerusalem, the princes of Babylon came in, and they did things. In the same way, America is going to be invaded by the principalities with the spirit of Babylon. And these underworld creatures are demonic creatures. We even have their names. Nergal will enter America and conduct their deceiving operation. And ladies and gentlemen, it is happening now. Folks, we did a whole series on this. Nergal is the demon in charge of the secret police of hell. Nergal is an expert at Nazi tactics. The demon Nergal, who serves Satan, has been at this for a long, long time and has done this in other countries and other nations. And that is why I am sharing this information, because more of these events are coming. These demons, these spirits, these principalities that have now invaded America are here. and they are writing their script for how this thing is going to play out. Folks, the game is afoot, and it's in play. But unfortunately, it's not a game. It's real life. It's reality. And it's going to happen before our very eyes. A lot of people are looking at this and limiting themselves to the lens of the physical. And we can't do that, folks. If we are the remnant of God, if we are the wise ones, and if we have discernment, we have to see the big picture. Now, in order for these demonic entity spirits to take over America and change the way that America conducts its laws, they need to introduce a lot of terrorist-type events. They need these events to change the people into a population of fear and to convince the people that they have to accept whatever the government tells them. The lockdown needs to be acceptable. And what is it about that word, ladies and gentlemen? Terrorism. It seems that people stop thinking when they hear it, when they know what happened. They just accept the accusation. Oh, the two brothers are terrorists? Well, then string them up. They're guilty then. If Bill O'Reilly says that the brothers need to burn in hell, then I guess that's true. I'll turn off my brain and accept what Bill O'Reilly says, or what Mayor Bloomberg says, or what Obama says, or Biden, or Big Sister. Folks, is this the way that we're supposed to conduct ourselves with our vigilance? And that leads me to another point right now that I am very, very concerned about. I'm very disturbed about how I'm watching this thing take place and unfold. But folks, I hope that I'm able to communicate what I'm about to say. Do you folks remember the passionate responses from the freedom-loving Americans when their gun rights were threatened a few weeks ago? Do you remember how people came out of the woodwork, the NRA people, and they have their spokesmen, their representatives, their famous entertainers who defend the Second Amendment? People like Chuck Norris and Ted Nugent came forth and they made some pretty good arguments on how you can't take away the Second Amendment, because you take that away, what else will they take away? And they presented some very, very valid arguments. And the community that believes in these things, the patriots, the Christians, the libertarians, those that understand the importance of the Constitution, came together and they stood shoulder to shoulder and they said, no, we're not going to take it. You cannot take away our Second Amendment. You remember that, folks? This is just a few weeks old. Well, since this event happened, I noticed that many of these same individuals have found themselves with a case of dementia and memory loss, because I am now hearing rhetoric, and this is the same kind of rhetoric that I remember hearing when George W. was the president. Right after 9/11, he passed the Patriot Act, and Fox News justified it, and all of the Christians justified it because George Bush, after all, is a Republican. He's a right-winger, and he wouldn't do anything wrong. Those rules are for good. They're against those bad Muslims. So the Patriot Act Part 1 was passed, and then we saw Part 2, and then we started seeing a lot of other freedom-killing laws come forth. And Christians